Have you ever paused and wondered, is this it? Is this what the later years are supposed to feel like? Slow, quiet, forgotten? Or could this season, the one you're living right now, actually be the most powerful chapter of your life? Because what if aging isn't the beginning of the end, but the beginning of alignment? You've lived long enough to know that life doesn't wait. The seasons shift. People move on. Bodies change. But through it all, one thing remains. You still have a choice. Not just about how you age, but how you honor the life you've been given. Somewhere along the way, we start to believe a dangerous lie. That our health no longer matters just because we're older. That the slowing pace or aching joints means we've somehow earned the right to stop trying, to stop caring, to stop moving. But let me tell you this truth, clearly, lovingly, urgently. You need to stop neglecting your health. Not tomorrow. Not after your next doctor's visit. Now. You're still breathing, aren't you? Then you still have a responsibility. You're still walking, even if slower. Then you still have power. And where there is power, there is purpose. God didn't carry you through the heartbreaks, the losses, the silent nights soaked in tears, just so you could slowly fade in the name of getting old. Your body is not your punishment. It's not some worn-down relic waiting to expire. It's not broken-down junk. It is a temple, and how you treat it matters. You don't ignore a temple. You don't starve it, poison it, or abandon it in a corner. You respect it. You nourish it. You move it not like a teenager, but like someone wise enough to know that stillness steals life. This isn't about perfection. It's not about running marathons or chasing trends. It's about simple obedience, standing up instead of sitting all day, drinking water instead of soda, taking a walk instead of scrolling endlessly, stretching, breathing, laughing again. Because sometimes healing doesn't start with a prescription, it starts with movement. The truth is, faith without works is dead. And the same applies to your physical health. You must work with what you have instead of constantly mourning what you've lost. Too many seniors are fading, not from age, but from habits. Bad ones. Silent, passive, destructive choices. Every missed meal, every restless night, every pill taken without reflection, it all adds up. Until one day, you're no longer living, you're just waiting to die. But that's not what life is supposed to look like. That's not what God designed for your later years. These are not your leftovers. These are your legacy years. So take care of your mind. Stop feeding it fear from 10 hours of toxic news. Read the Word. Nourish your spirit. Sing again. Laugh with someone you love. Take a walk under the sunset sky, even if it's just around the block. You may not reverse time, but you can revive joy. And when joy is present, healing starts to flow. Let me tell you this plainly, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to do everything at once, but you do need to stop treating your body like it's disposable. Because it's not. It's divine. It's the only one you've got. Yes, it may carry the scars of surgeries, the sting of arthritis, or the fatigue of chronic pain, but it still responds to love. It still responds to hope. It still responds to discipline. Treat it like a gift, and you'll be amazed by what it gives back. You've spent decades pouring into others, raising families, building homes, serving, giving, showing up. But now God is giving you a sacred invitation, a window of time to turn inward, not selfishly, but wisely, to care for what you've often overlooked you. Because when your body is strong, your mind is clear. When your mind is free, your spirit can soar. And when your spirit soars, you can speak life over others. You can become the blessing someone else is praying for, but it starts with stewardship. So don't let another day pass by thinking your health no longer matters. Because the truth is, there are hidden signs you've been carrying all along. Marks that show you're not done yet. marks that reveal you were made for more. So yes, your body is a temple. But even more than that, your life is still a gift. And how you care for it is how you honor the God who trusted you with it. Don't let routine rob you of vitality. Don't let comfort turn into a cage. Because comfort unchecked can quietly become a prison, and routine can disguise itself as surrender. The enemy isn't just after your energy, he's after your engagement. He wants you numb, distracted, too tired to care, and too indifferent to fight back. But God wants you well, awake, fully alive. And if you're still here, still breathing, then guess what? You still have something to give. Don't waste your scars by turning them into shame. Turn them into testimonies. Because somebody out there, someone who feels exactly how you once felt, needs to know how you got back up again. But they'll never hear it if you stay silent in the valley of regret. There is still life ahead of you, still purpose in your hands, still people who need your wisdom, still moments waiting for your smile, still breakthroughs that have your name written on them. But you must stop punishing yourself for being human. You must stop replaying what God has already forgiven. Today, I want you to do something radical, something holy, something liberating. Give yourself permission to live. Not halfway, not hidden behind shame, not tucked in regret, but fully, freely, unapologetically. You don't owe your past one more second of your present. And yet so many in their senior years live like ghosts in their own homes, day after day in silence. Not because they're done living, but because they've convinced themselves this is just how it's supposed to be. The phone doesn't ring, the visitors stop coming, and all that's left is the echo of a voice inside your head. But I came to tell you, today, stop isolating yourself. Yes, you've lived a full life, but that doesn't mean your life is finished. You may have fewer people around you, but that doesn't mean you're meant to disappear. Loneliness was never part of God's plan for you, not when He created you, not now. We serve a relational God, a God who formed us not just to exist, but to connect, to belong, to build, to share life. And when we begin withdrawing, when we build walls instead of bridges, we're not protecting ourselves. We're starving ourselves. Because you were made to give love. And you were made to receive it too. Isolation rarely happens overnight. Sometimes it starts small. You skip church because the pews feel empty. You stop calling friends because you're afraid of being a burden. You avoid family because it feels like they've moved on. But listen to me carefully. The silence you tolerate will become the silence that consumes you. Just because the world around you has changed doesn't mean you no longer belong in it. In fact, the more the world changes, the more your voice matters, because the enemy does his best work in isolation. That's where doubt multiplies. That's where bitterness grows. That's where lies take root. I'm forgotten. I'm not needed. I'm invisible. But none of those things are true, because the truth is, there is still power in your voice, still light in your presence, still purpose in your breath. Somewhere along the journey, you may have whispered to yourself, "My best days are behind me." But let me tell you, that is not the voice of truth. That's the voice of fear. That's the voice of disappointment. That's the quiet echo of a life that's been hurt, let down, or simply exhausted. But it's not the voice of God. It's not the voice of purpose. And it's certainly not the voice of your future. Don't confuse solitude with peace. Solitude is a choice, something sacred, a moment of quiet to recharge. But isolation is what happens when you start believing that you deserve to be alone. When you stop reaching out because reaching hurts too much. And I get it. Some of you have been deeply wounded. You trusted people who walked away. You buried friends who once filled your days with laughter. You watched loved ones drift into distant silence, or the next life. Now you're guarded. You say you're just keeping to yourself. But deep down, you're afraid. Afraid to risk connection. Afraid to feel that sting again. But listen to me closely. Healing doesn't come from hiding. It doesn't come from waiting for the pain to disappear on its own. It comes from opening up, even if it's just a little. Start small. One conversation, one coffee, one phone call, even one walk to the fence to say hello to the neighbor. You'd be surprised how much one simple connection can do for your spirit. And don't you dare say I'm too old to make new friends. That's another lie. Friendship doesn't expire with age. In fact, some of the richest relationships are born later in life because now you know what matters. You've outgrown the drama. You see through the small talk. You value depth. You crave honesty. You've got wisdom, compassion, humor, perspective, and someone out there needs exactly that. You are still an answer to someone's prayer. There's a younger soul who needs your calm, a confused heart who needs your wisdom, a hurting life who needs your testimony. But they won't find you behind locked doors. They won't hear your story if you never tell it. Yes, community is a gift, but it doesn't always come knocking. Sometimes you have to open the door first. And sure, it might feel awkward. You might walk into a room and feel like the outsider. You might wonder, do I belong here? But don't let that feeling make the decision for you. Show up anyway. Speak anyway. Smile anyway. Because that's where the warmth starts to return, not from waiting, but from showing up. Even God said, "It is not good for man to be alone." That wasn't just about marriage, it was about human connection. We were created for each other, to build, to bond, to belong. When you isolate yourself, you rob your soul of what it was designed to receive. Companionship, laughter, encouragement, love, and the dullness that follows. That creeping heaviness in your chest, the fatigue in your bones. That's not just age. That's loneliness. And you weren't meant to carry that. But connection. Real connection can revive you. The kind of connection that makes you feel seen. The kind where someone looks into your eyes and says, "I hear you." The kind that doesn't require a performance, just presence. And I'm not just talking about social events or passing hellos. I'm talking about heart connections, the kind that tell you without words, you still matter. You're not invisible. You're still alive for a reason. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait to feel 100% confident. Don't wait for the perfect people. Reach out. Show up. Invite life in again, even in small ways. Because you are not forgotten. You are not finished. And you are definitely not alone. God still has divine appointments on your calendar. He still has people for you to meet, wisdom for you to share, and love for you to give. But first, you have to open the door. Now there's a lie that creeps in quietly with time. One that sounds wise but is rooted in fear. It whispers, "You've done enough. Just sit back. Don't try anything new. But hear me loud and clear. Stop avoiding change." Comfort may feel safe, but sometimes it's not a blessing. Sometimes it's a trap. It lulls you into stillness. It convinces you that staying the same is better than growing. It keeps you from the joy, the strength, the new purpose, waiting in this next season. Maybe you're thinking, at my age, what's left to change? I've worked hard. I've raised a family. I've paid my dues. You've walked through valleys no one knew about. You've climbed mountains others couldn't handle. You've cried in silence, loved deeply, and survived more storms than most people could imagine. But here's the truth that many forget. Growth doesn't retire. Purpose doesn't retire. As long as you're breathing, God is still writing. But to turn the page, you've got to be willing to let go of the last chapter. Too many people confuse aging with ending. But aging, it's not the end, it's the evolution. It's the unfolding of depth wisdom, and clarity. It's the sacred invitation to become more, not less. Yes, the world around you is changing. Technology, relationships, values, even how people define truth. It can feel like the ground is shifting beneath your feet. And while there's nothing wrong with missing the way things used to be, clinging to the past will never prepare you for the future. Sometimes we confuse stubbornness for strength. We think holding tightly to the familiar means we're staying true to ourselves. But in reality, that grip becomes a wall, a barrier between you and what God is trying to do right now in your life. I've seen it more times than I can count, people in their later years refusing to change, refusing to try something new, even when that new could bring healing joy or connection. They hold on to what's familiar, like it's oxygen. But here's what they don't realize. Faith doesn't live in the familiar. Faith lives in the stretch, in the yes, when your comfort zone is screaming no. In the moment you say, God, I don't fully understand where you're leading me, but I trust you're not done yet. And let's be real, sometimes the hardest change isn't external. It's not about learning how to use that new phone or joining a group at church. It's internal. It's about how we think, how we forgive, how we love. Maybe God is asking you to finally let go of that grudge you've held for years. Maybe He's stirring something new in your spirit, a call to mentor someone, a chance to serve again, or a conversation you've been avoiding for too long. But because it doesn't fit the version of life you've settled into, you've been pushing it aside. Let me say this, gently but clearly. Comfort can become your coffin. It feels soft and safe at first, but over time it starts to bury your potential. God never promised us an easy life, but He did promise an abundant one. And abundance doesn't come from staying still. It comes from stepping forward even if your steps are slow, even if your hands are trembling. Look at nature. A tree doesn't stop growing just because it's old. In fact, the deeper its roots, the stronger its branches. And even in its last season, it can still bear fruit. The same is true for you. You're not here just to exist. You're here to flourish, to bloom in this very season. But for that to happen, you've got to open yourself up, not just to what feels safe, but to what's next. Now don't get overwhelmed. Thinking change means dramatic overnight transformation. Most of the time, it starts small. Maybe it's saying yes to learning how to text your grandkids. Maybe it's walking into a group you never imagined joining. Maybe it's just saying, yes, I'll go when everything in you wants to stay home. Change often whispers before it ever roars. But those small steps, they open big doors. Because the truth is, when you stop growing, you start fading. But when you stay open, when you keep stretching, reaching, risking, you stay alive. I believe with all my heart, there is new joy waiting for you, new friendships, new peace, new purpose. But they can't find you if you've sealed your life behind the bricks of routine and the fear of change. You've got to loosen your grip. Let God move you forward. Yes, it's okay to miss the old days. It's okay to feel a little uneasy about change. But don't let fear be the loudest voice in the room. Let faith speak louder. Because on the other side of obedience, on the other side of that first small step, is the life you were meant to still live. Let faith rise louder. Let it remind you that God is still the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. But that doesn't mean He calls you to stay still. On the contrary, God rarely leaves us where we are. Maybe you've been resisting the change, holding tightly to what feels familiar. But maybe, just maybe, it's time to let go. To allow Him to stretch you, shape you, and usher you into something you never saw coming. Because even now He is doing something new. There comes a season in life when we begin to measure our worth by what we've lost: youth careers, health, or loved ones we once held so close. And if we're not careful, we begin living more in our memories than in the moments in front of us. That's when regret starts to settle in slow like rust on the soul. It eats away at joy, chips at peace, and dims the light of our purpose. But I came today to tell you need to stop camping out in the past. That doesn't mean it's irrelevant. Of course it matters. Your past shaped you. It taught you lessons, gave you strength. But it was never meant to chain you. It was never meant to decide who you are allowed to be today. Because when you spend more time looking back than forward, life starts to stall. You become stuck in a version of your story that's no longer moving forward. And you miss the beauty of the now. I know there are things you wish you could undo, words you shouldn't have said, chances you didn't take, moments you let slip away. That's real, and I don't discount it. But please hear me, reliving it won't rewrite it. God doesn't move in reverse. He operates in redemption. You serve a God who can take every step off course, every wound, every teardrop, and still build something powerful from it. Nothing is wasted in His hands. Even your greatest regrets can become seeds of healing for someone else if you're willing to let go of the past that keeps pulling you back. Some believe punishment means continuing to feel shame. But punishment has already been handled. You don't have to carry that anymore. What you need now is forgiveness. Self-forgiveness. Forgive yourself for not knowing better. Forgive yourself for being human. Forgive the plans that didn't unfold how you imagined. That forgiveness, that's where your freedom starts. And I'm not just talking about your own failures. I mean the pain others caused, the betrayal, the rejection, the people you poured into who didn't pour back. You can't move forward if you're still shackled to wounds that never healed. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means yesterday no longer has power over today. Some people rehearse their pain like a script, reliving every offense, retelling every wound. Then they wonder why joy feels far, why peace can't settle. It's because you can't keep dragging the past into the present and expect a new future to unfold. You have to decide. Not feel, decide. Decide to release it. Stop watering the roots of resentment. Stop living as a prisoner in a cell where you already hold the key. It's not pretending nothing happened. It's saying, yes, it happened, but it no longer defines me. Let your scars speak of survival, not suffering. Live with open hands instead of clenched fists around what should have been. And can I tell you something? When you stop clinging to the past, you make space for laughter, to echo in rooms where silence once lived. You make space for God to do something new, even in your life's later chapters. Some of you are still waiting for closure from people who may never apologize, holding out for affirmation from voices long silent. But the closure you seek isn't in them. It's in you. It's in choosing peace over pain, in trusting that God is a better writer of your story than you ever were. So stop looking back in sorrow. Start walking forward in surrender. Because there is still life ahead, still people to love, still mornings to rise for. And that's not an accident. That's mercy. You can't rewrite yesterday, but you can redeem it by refusing to relive it.